in our annual Kinnis Likras, the Yom Hadin, Yom HaKippurim. It's always a privilege for me to be able to be included in such an event, be able to speak with such great personalities. It's a special privilege, of course, as always, to listen and learn from Rabbi Pelcovitz, who every year when I'm commissioned by Rabbi Feiner to go and ask to make sure he's going to be willing to do it again, every year it takes a little bit more convincing. The pause after my question is a little bit longer, but Baruch Hashem, with a little bit of prodding and getting the Rebbitzin on our side, we usually succeed, and it's a tremendous chus for us. Our bracha on behalf of the Kehillah is Yomim al Yemei Melech Toisif Man Malki Rabbanan. We should have this chus of learning from you, continue to be inspired by you for so many more years to come. Amen. It's always a question when you have an event called for a specific time, there are multiple speakers, and the event starts late, whose time does it come out of? And being the first speaker, I'm going to assume whatever works in my best interest. So, the truth is, I wanted to begin. Normally this event takes place prior to Rosh Hashanah. And because of scheduling reasons, so we did it Ben Kesser La'asa this year. But I think it's a tremendous opportunity to be doing it Aseres Yemei Tshuva. And I took the opportunity, whereas normally we prepare by focusing on Rosh Hashanah, because it's hard to see past Rosh Hashanah when Rosh Hashanah is staring you in the face to Yom HaKippurim. But this year we're facing the Yom Hadin, Yom HaKippurim, in just a few days. So I wanted to take the time this year to prepare ourselves in particular for Yom HaKippurim. I wanted to do so by focusing on something which I believe is the center of Yom HaKippurim, the center of Yom HaKadosh, but often gets overlooked. And it gets overlooked because it's hard for us to relate to. It's easy for us to relate to an Asana Tokif. It's easy for us to relate to Mi Yichye, Mi Yomos, O Kasveinu, B'Sefer HaChayim. That we could relate to, we could start crying, we could pour out our hearts. But when it comes to the Avodah of Yom HaKippurim, so there it's very difficult. So far from Beis HaMikdash, Zrikas Hadam, Shchita, Hoylocha, Big Day Zav, the golden clothing, Big Day Lavan, these are foreign concepts. And it got to a point where often we don't even give it a shot. You'll often notice people walking into Shul Yom HaKippurim, so on one hand they have the Machzer, on the other hand they have some other book. That's their Avodah book. When the tzibur gets to the Avodah, so this is the book I pull out and I'll read this book until we're done with the Avodah. But the truth of the matter is the Avodah of Yom HaKippurim was the center of the Yom Kippur. When we had Beis HaMikdash, you couldn't imagine a Yom Kippur without the Avodah. It would be as ridiculous as having a Pesach without a Karban Pesach. A Yom Kippur without the Avodah. Could you imagine such a thing? Yom HaKippurim was all about the Avodah. Rav Soloveitchik, a fascinating, every year I try to listen to before Yom HaKippurim, him reminisce over how his father, Moshe, his grandfather, Reb Chaim, used to recite the Avodah, tears rolling down their cheeks. He said he imagined as a little boy hearing Reb Chaim say the Avodah. He was taken out of his life. He was taken out of Prujan. He was taken out of Brisk. He was transplanted in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. He could almost see the Avodah. He could see the Kohen Gadol B'Tifartoi. And then all of a sudden he would be snapped out of it. He would hear those words of all this. B'yoyis HaMikdash al Mechoinoi. This was all when the Beis HaMikdash was standing. But now, Avaseinu, Chatanu, we sinned, V'echrivu, and they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. That was the Avodah amongst Gedolei Yisrael. It was the highlight. You could imagine Rav Yaakov Emden brings a letter from a non-Jew. It's hafla v'fela. A person should try to get their hands on it before Yom Kippurim. He brings a letter from a Roman non-Jew who witnessed not the avodah of Yom Kippurim, but who witnessed them simply bringing the Kohen Gadol to Beis HaMikdash. And this non-Jew writes how amazing the splendor, the glory was. All of Klal Yisrael escorting the Kohen Gadol to Beis HaMikdash. And he writes, I cannot imagine, I can't describe it to you. V'timati b'me'oid me'oid. I was amazed at the glory, the kavod. V'amarti b'eis ahi. Says this non-Jew, this Roman guy, v'amarti b'eis ahi. At that moment I said, Baruch shecholak michvoydoi le'ela. Blessed are these people that the Rabbi Shalom himself, God Almighty, bestowed from His own kavod upon them. That was avodah in Beis HaMikdash. Avodas Yom Kippurim. But it wasn't only the centerpiece of Yom Kippurim, it was the centerpiece of the entire year. It was the centerpiece is what Klal Yisrael looked for. This was the avodah throughout the entire year, as you could see from this letter of this non-Jew. Rav Asher Weiss suggests something fascinating. You take a look through the Mishnayos and Maseches Yuma describing the avodah, describing kapara, the different elements of kapara, the chatos, the asham, the ayel. And then all of a sudden at the end of the Mishnayos comes Rabbi Akiva and says the famous words. In the middle of nowhere, Ashreichem Yisrael, how fortunate you Klal Yisrael are. Lifnei mi atem mitarim, because who's mitar you? Avichem shebashamayim. And asks Rav Asher Weiss, what's this doing here? In the middle of nowhere, Rabbi Akiva says, you're so fortunate, Klal Yisrael, because the Rabbeinu Shalom is mitar you. But he explains that it was very simple. Because at the time Rabbi Akiva was living, you couldn't have fathomed, you couldn't imagine a Yom Kippurim without an avodah. And after the Churban Bayis, the colleagues of Rabbi Akiva, they just simply didn't want to engage Yom Kippurim. We're going to have a Yom Kippur without the avodah. And of course, Rabbi Akiva, from Akiva Nechamtanu always finds those words of comfort. He says, don't worry. Our kapara never came from karbanos alone. Our kapara never came from a Beis HaMikdash. Lifnei mi atem mitarem. Who is mitar as Klal Yisrael? Avichem shebashamayim. We have to proceed, we have to move on, we have to go forward. Because even without karbanos, the Rabbeinu Shalom is there ready to grant us kapara. But that kapara that we so desire, so yearn for, that comes through reciting the avodah. Our recitation of the avodah is as if we are doing the avodah. Nishalma parim svaseinu. It's a recitation of the avodah that accomplishes that kapara. And it's not simply saying the words, as Rabbeinu Bechaya tells us. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't need someone to zip through piyutim, not understanding a word that he's saying. The avodah that's going to achieve kapara, says Rabbeinu Bechaya, have it mizbainen ba. Think about it, understand it. Maybe even prepare before. Try to understand what you're going to be reading. What the Kohen Gadol is doing. Because that's the avodah. Our recitation of the avodah is what accomplishes our kapara in Yom Kippurim. What a shame it would be to forgo on such an opportunity. So I decided this year we're going to focus on one detail, one small little detail of the avodah of Yom Kippurim. And it's the final detail of avodah of Yom Kippurim. The very last detail, which the Paitonim focus on as they're taking us through the course of this day. Because there's something very interesting when it comes to the avodah, the service of Kohen Gadol and Beis HaMikdash on Yom Kippur. And you'll notice this, that even if you don't understand exactly what you're saying, one thing that you notice is that there's a lot of repetition. The Kohen Gadol is always changing his clothing. And every time he changes his clothing, he has to wash before he takes one pair of clothing off. And then he has to go to the mikvah, and then he has to wash again and put another clothing on. It says the Gemara at the end of the day, he's being toiv on the mikvah 5 times. How many times is he washing his hands and feet, kiddush yadayim v'raglayim? 10 times throughout the day. Every time he changes his clothing, a tefillah, a two, washing of the hands, washing of the feet, kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. And understandably, we realize, so what is this about? What's the tefillah about? What's the immersion in the mikvah about? What's the kiddush yadayim v'raglayim? It's part of preparing him for the avodah. He's getting prepared. You go to the mikvah to prepare. You wash your hands and feet to be prepared, to have the right mindset. I'm clean, I'm tahor for you, the Rabbi Shalom. But if that's the case, I'll ask you the following question. Because the final thing the Kohen Gadol does as he leaves Beis HaMikdash, and we sing that song, how glorious it was for the Kohen Gadol to be leaving Beis HaMikdash, and he comes and he's about to be escorted by Klal Yisrael. One more time, says the Eytan, and the Rambam paskins like this as well. One more time he washes his hands and feet before he leaves. He's done with the avodah. It's finished. He's done all the zrikas. He's been makter the k'teiros. Everything that has to be done is finished. He takes off his clothing, ready to don his bigdei chol. And what does the Eytan tell us? Tochel avodas. He finished the avodas hayoim. Once again, yad v'regel kiddush. He goes back and he washes again. And the Rambam as well. Ve'acher kach mekadesh yodo v'raglov. After he's finished with the avodah, he washes once more. U'poishe bigdei zav. He takes off his bigdei kahuna. V'loivesh bigdei atzmo. He puts on his bigdei chol. And then he goes, he's escorted by Klal Yisrael. Now, if we are correct that the tevilah, the immersion, the washing of the hands, the kiddush yadayim v'raglayim is about preparation for avodah, what in the world is the Kohen Gadol as he's about to embark on his journey home? He's finished with the avodas hayayim, he made it out alive. What is he washing his hands for? He's going home. You're done with the avodah. Now again, kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, you're finished. Take off the bigdei kahuna, put your jeans back on, we're going home. What are you washing your hands for again? This is something which was pointed out to me by one of my Rabbeim, Rav Kalman Epstein, something which has bothered me ever since. I came across an idea of Rabbi Breuer this year, which for me sheds insight. Rabbi Feiner told me today that he's going to be sharing a lot of Hasidic Torah, so I figured I would take it to the opposite extreme, and I'll go to Rabbi Breuer. But Rabbi Breuer says something, make everyone happy, right? Rabbi Breuer says something absolutely fascinating. He says, David HaMelech in Tehillim comes and tells us the following pasuk, which we're very familiar with. David HaMelech says, Yomim Yutzayru v'loi echad behem. Yomim Yatzuru v'loi echad behem. You created days. The Rebbeinu Shalom created days v'loi echad behem. But to him, he kept one of those days. He, so to speak, gave us all the days to use for ourselves, but the Rebbeinu Shalom kept at one of them. V'loi, and to him, echad mehem. Now, which day is that he kept for himself? So the Gemara quotes a pasuk in Yeshaya, where the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling Yeshaya Navi, Klal Yisrael is missing the boat over here. They're so busy with their fast of Yom HaKippurim and bringing their karbanas, but meanwhile, what's inside their hearts? Where are their minds? Totally elsewhere. They're not committed to me. So the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Yeshaya Navi, Hachazeh yiyeh tzayim evchareu. Is this the fast that I chose? Is this what I really want? I need Klal Yisrael to fast. I need them to bring these karbanas. If their heart's not with me, Rachmana liba boy. That's what I want. Is this the fast I chose? Comes the Gemara, you see that the Rebbeinu Shalom chose one day which is his, v'loi echad behem. And which day is it? It's the day of Yom HaKippur. But what's fascinating is that v'loi echad behem is a kri in the ksiv. It's recited one way. It's read one way, but recited another. V'loi echad behem is read v'loi with a vav. But there's also v'loi echad behem right next to it in the Chumash, in the Tanakh, you'll see v'loi with an aleph. V'loi echad behem, and one of these days is his. But also v'loi echad behem, and not one of them. And Rav Breuer tries to make sense of this. It seems to be a stira, contradiction. Is this one day of Yom HaKippurim, is it the Rabbeinu Shalom's V'loi echad behem, and to him we give this day of Yom HaKippurim? Or is it V'loi echad behem? It's not a day at all, whatever that means. Explains Rav Breuer, it's not a stira at all. It's not a contradiction whatsoever. But what David HaMelech is telling us, V'loi echad behem. The Rabbeinu Shalom kept for himself one day, the day of Yom HaKippurim. But you be sure, Klal Yisrael, that V'loi echad behem, that this one day is loi echad, that it's not just one day. Because if your Yom Echad is actually one day, and it doesn't pour over into the year, it doesn't influence your year, it doesn't shape your year, it doesn't drive your year, just one day in the calendar. So that's not the Yom Kippur the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. HaChazeh is this, the fast I want, the fast where they come into Shul one day, and they leave totally unchanged to live another year the same as last. V'lo yechad behem. He chose one day for himself. But be sure, v'lo yechad, that one day is not one day, but it's 365 days. That one day shapes every other day of the year. V'lo yechad behem. Ava v'lo yechad behem. It cannot just be one day. Because if Yom Kippur is one day on the calendar, we failed our mission. Yom Kippur has to go beyond the border of from Shkia till Tzeis of this single 24-hour period. It has to influence the rest of our year. Has to shape the rest of our year. Has to drive us and form who we are throughout the remainder of the year. Be sure, Klal Yisrael, says David HaMelech, V'lo yechad behem. It can't simply be one day. And if you're to ask me, what are we supposed to take? What does David HaMelech mean? What are we supposed to take from a Yom HaKippurim and bring to the rest of the year? Yom Kippur is such a unique day. We don't eat, we don't drink. We're detached from any sort of pleasure. That's a day of Yom HaKippurim. I'm supposed to bring this into the rest of the year where I'm eating, I'm drinking, I have regular family life. What does that even mean? Where do you see that I could bring? Where is there room for this? V'lo yechad behem, of course it's only one day. I think that the answer, if we're honest with ourselves, is very clear. The answer is that a Yom HaKippurim, yes, you're correct. The nihugim, the customs of Yom HaKippurim is for one day. But those customs of not eating and not drinking create a certain focus. We're focused on Yom HaKippurim with our relationship. We're totally preoccupied with our relationship with the Rabbeinu Shalom. We come into Shul, we're not eating, we're not drinking, we're thinking about one thing. There's clear focus. It's all that's on our minds. And David HaMelech is telling us throughout the year you can't be focused the whole day. It's impossible to be focused on your relationship with the Rabbeinu Shalom for 24 hours a day. But this level of focus, of clarity, of focus on your relationship with the Almighty has to exist at some point. You can't leave it to 24 hours in the day. You have to have some time where you're willing to detach yourself from the world. Yes, not for 24 hours, but for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just focus on what's important. Concentrate. We've lost our ability to concentrate. It's an unbelievable thing. I just came back from a short trip in Eretz Yisrael. And part of the reason that I went, the main reason I went there was to spend time with someone who's considered to be Miziknei Yisrael, Migdoilei Yisrael. And I had a rare opportunity to spend time with him. So I took the opportunity and I went for a few days to spend the time. It's something which I haven't fully digested yet. I'm not really ready to discuss it in detail in public. But the very first thing that I noticed as I walk into his office, we're talking about a person who I would assume is beyond the age of 90. And he's standing there over his stender with his Gemara open. And his son tells me that he was makabel upon himself as a young boy, that he's always going to be learning standing. Ad kidei kach, that his son has to come bandage his feet because they're so swollen. And I asked him why. The Gemara talks about learning standing, but that was batal a long time ago. Why is this the thing that you're so careful about? And I was expecting him to say, like Har Sinai, they were standing, and there's all sorts of reasons in Kabbalah to stand. And he turns and he says, who could concentrate when they're sitting? You're so comfortable. Who could concentrate? And for the next 4 days, I saw a concentration that I haven't seen in my entire life. I started also trying to stand. I figured he's 90 years old. I'm going to sit down. And it helped me concentrate. All I was concentrating was my back pain. At a certain point, I told him I'm going to sit down. But we've lost our ability to concentrate, to focus. I'm not talking about focusing for an entire day. But to focus for some time, to take some time out in a day, in a week, to focus, to see what's important in our lives. We've lost that because any of the time that people used to spend focusing, thinking, contemplating life, the bigger ideas in life. We have so many distractions that have gobbled it all up. Whoever stands online in a grocery thinking about their life, about where they're going. Have I improved this year at all? Not even have I improved. Have I tried to improve? Is there something I'm working on? If the Rabbi Shalom came to me today and asked me, what am I working on? Do I have an answer for him? Aseres Yimei Tshuva. But we don't think. We drive also, we don't think. We're able to live our entire lives as from good Ehrlich Jews and not think. A Talmud of Rav Hutner once told me, unbelievable. He said he was a young bacher and he had left Chaim Berlin and he had gone to learn in Eretz Yisrael, and he hears that his Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Hutner, is coming to Eretz Yisrael. He's going to go visit his Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. And he makes the trek from the Mir Yeshiva, wherever Rav Hutner is staying, and he walks into the office, wherever Rav Hutner was, and he has his Mishabrura in his hand. And Rav Hutner starts to scream. You have nothing to think about on a bus ride. You have nothing to think about in life. Everything's so simple to you. You can't be with yourself for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, for a half hour just thinking about what's important in life. I stopped saying this story a little while back because the message people got was not to learn Mishabur on the bus. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think learning Mishabur is probably better than a lot of the things that we do on the bus. But the point is, we have to spend time with ourselves. We have to see where we're holding. We have to see where we're going. Is there a difference from year to year to year? If there's no difference from year to year to year, so after 5 years there's no difference, after 10 years there's no difference. That takes focus. It takes concentration. Yom Kippur, we spend an entire day focused, concentrating on our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. I believe that the lesson we should take from this is that that's not going to last an entire year. We can't spend an entire year every day thinking about our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. But set aside some time in a day, sometime in a week, sometime in a month, to think about life. Think about your family, where you're headed, what's going on in your lives. Think about the relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Imagine how different our religious lives would be if before wrapping tefillin, as the Baal HaTanya writes, I would think the Rebbeinu Shalom is watching me right now wrap tefillin. He's asking me right now, I want to see you wrap tefillin. Before giving tzedakah, as if the Rebbeinu Shalom was watching at me. He cares about what I'm doing. But we're too distracted. Even when we're doing mitzvahs, we can't think about the God. Who has time to think about God when we're doing mitzvahs? So we go through our whole lives doing mitzvahs, never associating it with the Rebbeinu Shalom. I believe that's what the Rambam is telling us. Before Kohen Gadol goes back home, don't think you're done with the Avodah. The Avodah is just beginning. There's one more Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. Because now you take everything that happened today in Beis HaMikdash. And that was the easy part. Now bring it home. Let it influence your lives. Let that focus, that concentration, that clarity that you had in Kodshe Kodshim, bring that into your home. Allow that effect to be the driving force in your life. So before you go home, once again, we say, Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. The Avodah is just beginning now. Be sure, Kohen Gadol. V'lo yechar bihem. This is a day of the Rabbeinu Shalom. But your job now is to be sure, to make sure, v'lo yechar mehem, that it's not just one single day in the year. That's our job as well as we go into Yom HaKippurim. Take the lesson of the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol and remind ourselves that the focus, the clarity of mind we have on Yom HaKippurim standing before Ne'ilah. Our job is to figure out a way somehow to tap into that throughout the year. And with that, the Rebbeinu Shalom will see our sincerity and he'll no doubt grant us a year of Shnas, Chaim, V'Shalom, V'Bracha.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to acknowledge first the presentation that was just made by Rabbi Neuburger, and it touched me very deeply because it was Vorm Hayotzim and Alev, and maybe that's why this year we decided to have this kinus bein Kesel Osor between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, not before Rosh Hashanah, but between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is a very propitious moment in the Jewish calendar. The Jewish calendar is not something that takes place in a vacuum. The Jewish calendar is that which regulates the rhythm of our life and the rhythm of our entire being. And the rhythm of our being and the rhythm of our life is dictated, indeed, by the times in which a person finds himself at a given moment. And this given moment is a moment that I think Rabbi Neuburger was able to capture in the few words that he spoke, which left us not just satisfied with the beauty of the concepts that he uttered, but above all, they also whetted our appetite. And we want to hear more and more from his Chochmas HaTorah. Silence in itself, it seems to be a negative kind of an action. Silence is not something which has an active, dynamic character to it. Omar HaPope, Agra de Beitamya Shtikusa. The Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara says that the Agra meaning the reward, the payment, the compensation of that which we garner at given moments and given places. In this particular period, the Gemara in Brachos is talking to us about Agra de Beitamya. Beitamya is the place where people gather together to comfort one another. They gather together to bring nechama, because it is a time when people feel very deeply the profundity of the connection that we have with another human being in his loss. That other human being has just lost, let us say, a parent, may have just lost a spouse, may have just lost a life's companion that can never be replaced and can never be duplicated. And what is the purpose and what is the person supposed to do at that time? Is he supposed to wax eloquent? Is he supposed to show then his ability to control his emotions and to share his eloquence that normally is honed and normally developed carefully in order that each word should be measured and weighed and judged? Or Raphael says no. The greatest reward at a moment like that is shtikusa. Shtikusa means silence. How does silence take on the character of something which is eloquent and which expresses? How does silence take on the ability to be able to fill a void, and to fill a void with words? That's what Raphael is telling us. He's telling us that when a person comes into the house of an oval, and we have a tendency, as you know, that when we go to be Menachem Oval during the course of the year, we really don't know how to behave. We don't know what to say. We don't know how to conduct ourselves. And yet, when we go into the house of an oval, it is there that we are put to the test. It is there that we either will conduct ourselves in a manner that is meaningful, significant, and something which will remain with the oval, or it's something which will be set aside as something which you can only share with the eloquence that one has in a good husband. I can tell you from my own experience that the most difficult thing is to find the proper words and the proper expressions and the proper kind of a explanation of what's in your own heart when you go to be Menachem over somebody. Agro de Veitamia, he says, shtikusa. You cannot find the proper words because words escape you at times. And when words escape you, there is no way to express them. Think, Vayidom Aaron. Aaron has just lost 2 children. Vayidom Aaron, he is silent. Is it just a negative kind of a reaction of silence because I don't have the words to express what is in my heart at that time? Or is it because I cannot find the proper words? There is no kind of a narrative that I can find in my heart and in my mouth when I go to be Menachem Oval, a person who has had such a great loss. Be it the loss of a child, be it the loss of a spouse, be it the loss of a friend. Whatever the loss may be, the only way the expression can come to the fore is with silence, because the silence speaks so eloquently. I remember once reading that Vayidom Aaron, that it doesn't say Vayishtok Aaron, that he was quiet, he was silent, he didn't express his feelings. You know what feelings to express when you go to the house of a family that has buried a child. Do you know what words to use to bring comfort and solace to a family that has lost a son or a daughter? Impossible. It cannot be. Therefore, the Torah doesn't try to. The Torah says there is such a thing as an inanimate object. An inanimate object means that you are not able at that time to put together your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings. At that moment, you are more than speechless. You are more than speechless. At that moment, you are like an inanimate object. You cannot formulate your thoughts. The Abarbanel says the following: Pirush Vayidom Aaron hu shenehepach libo v'hoyo ke'even dome. He was so affected by what had happened to his brother's children that he became like an inanimate object. He became like a rock, like a stone. It isn't a question that he had emotions and feelings that had to be controlled. No. Because when a person is like a rock, when a person is like a stone, so lo nosa kolo b'pchi, he could not cry, or b'mispeit, or eulogize. Ke'evel of albonim, when a father has lost a child. Gam lo kibel tanchumim mi Moshe. Moshe, after all, was a person who was able to converse with the Almighty. Moshe, after all, was a person that had the ability to share his thinking and could put it into words, what he felt at a given moment. And yet, at that particular time, he was not able to think of and to uncover and discover the proper and the fitting words that would be words of tanchumim, that would be words of solace and of comfort. Ki lo noso by neshama, because there was no heart left. There was no soul, and there were no words. Hadibur ebo, there was no dibur. There were no ways to articulate. V'lochein omar vayidom Aaron, shehu miloshen domem v'shosek. Domem v'shosek. He became like an inanimate object. And an inanimate object does not have the power and the ability when the loss is so profound and so deep that he should be able to articulate it. When a person delivers a good hesped, and there are those who have that ability of delivering a moving and meaningful hesped, but far greater than the eloquence of any hesped is when a person comes to the home of a parent who has lost a child and just sits there and maybe holds their hand and maybe just looks at them deep into their eyes. And it's a person who sits and says absolutely nothing, but shares the loss and shares the sorrow. Can you imagine that a person who is going to spend the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and how should he spend that time? What should he share with those who are dearest and nearest to him? He doesn't necessarily share the words that are eloquent. He doesn't necessarily share the words that are moving and that are able to reach and touch the heart. On the contrary, it is then when he says absolutely nothing, then he is silent. But he is silent because he is sharing the loss. And when you share a loss, you have no words. The loss that a person feels during the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are days when you have no ability of articulating. You can only feel with the other person what is bothering him. What is it that he has, feelings that he has in the depth of his heart. Indeed, when we come to these days, Ben Kesel Osar, they are days that cannot be put and articulated and put into simple words. There can be no words because it's Vayidom. Because at that moment, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, if you really feel what is happening, and you really experience what is happening, and as the words of Rabbi Neuburger put it so eloquently and beautifully, talking about this period of time, a period of time that cannot be reduced to words. It cannot be reduced. On the contrary, Agod ve'tamya shtikusa. It is silence. I remember as a young man not understanding this, but now I do. I remember as a young man reading a story of a man who was a confidant, a friend. He happened to be in profession. He was a clergyman. He came to the house of a neighbor who had lost a child. And he was searching for the right words to say. He was searching. He was praying. Give me the words and put them into my mouth. And he could not. All that he could do was to sit and hold the hand of his neighbor who had just lost a child. All that he could do was to sit there and share the sorrow and share the moment of great loss. And in that moment, there were no words. There was utter and complete silence, but that silence was deafening. That silence said so much, and the feeling that this person had for his friend and neighbor was conveyed. How? Shtikusa, in the silence. And when we come to the Rabbi Shalom, Ben Kesel Ha'asar, what should we say to him? How should we express ourselves? And the answer is that we have no words to express ourselves. When we come to the Rabbi Shalom between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we say to him only one thing, basically. Here we are, and here you are. And there is a confrontation going on between the two of us. And we know what is deep in the recesses of your heart. And you know what is deep in our heart. You know what we want to say to you, and we have no way to put it into words. And we know exactly what you feel about us, and you have no way to comfort us with any kind of eloquence of language. Not now. Not at this point. At this point, it is just the presence of our being together. And that's Ben Kesel Ha'asar. Ben Kesel Ha'asar is that we are near and next to each other, that we do not escape one another. We don't try to hide from one another. We don't try to find a way to close our eyes. We find a way to open them wide, and as we open them, behold, what do we see? We see the presence of the Shekhinah. We see the Shekhinah in front of us. And the Shekhinah is there saying to us, you are my children. I am your father. Avinu Malkeinu is said during Aseres Yemei, because the relationship is a relationship of a father and a child. And that relationship can never, ever be duplicated. It can never change, and it can never become something that is articulated. That relationship is Agor de Beitamir, which is Shtikusa. And in the silence, what is to be found? In that silence, it is pregnant and it is giving birth to so much that is non-articulated because it belongs to the world of Shtika. It doesn't belong to the world of Dibur. And so, let us not waste these days, and let us not for one moment allow them to escape us. Let us not lose the mystery and the majesty of these days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Let us try to capture them, but also to cherish them. And then we will know what it means when our Papa said that the Agor de Beitamia, referring to these 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is in the Shtikusa. It's in the silence. It's in that which cannot be articulated. It's in that which can only be felt and felt deeply to the very recesses of our heart and soul. Now let me wish all of you a Gemar Chasima Tova. Let me wish all of you a year of joy and happiness. Let me wish all of you a year when you will be blessed with Yiddish Nachas from Yiddish Kinder. And I beg that you should use this time to reach out and touch the very heartstrings of your friends and neighbors, and that this connection will be a connection that you will have with one another for the entire year.
So tonight's kinnis was called 8:15 to 9:30. As Rabbi Neuburger said, yes, he had the schus kadima and Rabbi Pelcovitz, but I have nothing to worry about. You see, I'm the fastest talker of them all. So in 15 minutes, we'll just squeeze in 25 minutes worth. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I know Rabbi Friend is saying a Chizzuk Hisor'rus in Brooklyn, Rabbi Moshe Tivyalif across the street. But I don't know about you, but Ilu Lobasi tonight, not only to hear the amazing Rabbi Neuburger, and of course the super Rabbi Pelcovitz, but just to get the Siyuma de Milsa, that bracha, and that Rabbi Pelcovitz just bestowed upon each and every one of us, I feel already different going into my Yom Kippur Haba Aleinu L'Tova. All we could do is humbly reciprocate that bracha to the Rabbi Emeritus Shlita and as Chashva Harebetzin, that they should be Zaycha to continue to inspire us, to be Machazek and Ma'oded us, and Baruchnius, Vegashmius Mitoch Brias and Nefesh and Brias Aguf, and Meir Vias and Shona and Weiter Be'ezah Hashem Yisborach. Amen. I went to visit this afternoon a Chola from the Shul, from the community in Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. I went along with my wife, and when I left, I said to the family, let me leave with a little vart. The Gemara says, Brachas Amar Aleph, Hanifter Mechavero, Ayifter Mimenu Mitol Dvar Halacha, Shemitokas Achreu. I said, let me leave with a little vart. And they got a little nervous. Rabbi Feiner, a little vart, brief. All right, we're here for another hour. But this one was taka brief. There's an idea I heard from a Rav at a Chasana many years ago. I've seen it since quoted in different Svarim. And it's very okay. In Yani Diyoma, we're about to take in hand to Daled Minim. And of course, we have the Esrog, the Pri-Eitz Hadar. And I heard years ago, a Rav got up at the chuppah of a child, and he said, Esrog we know is Aleph, Tov, Reish, Gimel, often spelled without the Vav. And this Rav said that Esrog is Roshi Tevis, an acronym, Aleph, Emunah, Atav, Teshuva, Reish, Refuah, and Gimel, Geula. What's the Tzana Shaveh? What's the common denominator with the common thread interwoven throughout? Are those four aforementioned letters? Those four are the musogim, the concepts that we describe as being shalema. Emunah, there's Emunah shalema. Ataf, tshuva shalema. Reish, refuah shalema. And a Gimel, Geula shalema. What's the reason? Well, first we have to understand, what is the difference? Emunah shalema, either I believe or I don't believe. It doesn't mean I believe wholeheartedly in a complete, all-encompassing fashion. So, you can't go wrong if you quote from Rabbi Pelcovitz. Years ago, when it became one of my Zaidi Saba Jorosek, Olav Shalom's most favorite Vertelach, and he would quote it always b'shem Rabbi Pelcovitz. What's the Nekudas Achilik, the distinction between Emunah versus Emunah Shalema? And he would quote from a famous tightrope walker, and the pictures are in the old Guinness Book of World Records. He had a publicist. His PR guy said to him, I'm telling you, tightrope walker, you can walk across Niagara Falls in a tightrope, the high wire artist. I'm telling you, you can do it. He says, you really believe I could do it? I says, of course you can do it. I says, no, come on. Do you really, really honestly believe that I could do it? I says, yes, best, you're the best, you're the master. I'm the best high wire artist that ever lived. Of course you can do it. He says, if you really believe I can do it, then you'll go piggyback. And in the old Guinness Book of World Records, there's this Meshuggah who didn't get the fame, who didn't get the fortune, but he's there piggyback going across Niagara Falls. I believe you can do it until I have to go on his shoulders. And that's Amunah Shalema. So now we understand. There's Amunah and there's Amunah Shalema. You're willing to sacrifice, what are you willing to put on the line? And then there's a Refuah Shalema. There's a Refuah person, Rahman al-Islam, could be afflicted with Yana Machalo, and they can go into remission. How they got it? So they caught it in time, they nipped it in the bud, and the person is healthy. He or she carries along with everyday life, but it still might be there, and there might be some semblance, a remnant. Okay, the chemo, the radiation, we don't know yet. Is it Refuah Shalema? We have to wait and see. Right now, B'intayim, it is a Refuah, but we don't yet know it's a Refuah Shalema. And there's a Gula. We had a Gula from Mitzrayim, we had Gula. And the Golus Yovan Gula, but you know what? It wasn't a Gula Shlema, because it was still under the rulership, the dominion of the Goyim. In the end of the day, even when we had a Saman Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't going to be here forever. It's not going to be a Gula Shlema until the Gula Asida, Sheyovo Leinu Meherav Yameinu Amen V'Yamein. There's a Gula, there's Gula Shlema. Samuna Muna Shlema, Refuah Shlema, Tshuva Shlema. What's the difference? Either I did tshuva or I didn't do tshuva. The Rambam, Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Beis Halach Aleph, talks about Esav he tshuva gemura. Oh, Seisha, Samalkam, that's tshuva gemura, l'umas, in contrast to tshuva. And Perek Beis Halach Beis. But what is tshuva shalema? What exactly is the understanding of doing a complete and all-encompassing teshuva? So I spoke with her about Refuah Shalema. And then I had my wife, Baruch Hashem, I went with my wife, so we had some valuable time talking in the car. And after we visited this individual in Columbia this afternoon, we then went to Riverdale. And my mother-in-law, as the secretary, I really call her the secular Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva of Torah. She's really running the yeshiva. And we went, because that's the custom. We go, of course, to my parents, Erev Yom Kippur, and to get a birchas, habonim, to get the bracha from our parents. And my wife and I, we used to go as well to get a bracha from my in-laws. Unfortunately, my shver passed away just over a year ago. My wife just finished her year of Avelus. So we went together to get a bracha from my mother-in-law going into Yom Kippur. And we spent some time talking, of course, in the car on the way home. We come home, and as we're sitting down for a quick dinner, I said to her, Aviva, I want you to know I had a wonderful time with you today. She says, you had a wonderful time? We went to see a very sick person in a hospital. And we then went to get the bracha, which is very emotional because this is the first Yom Kippur, and that she wasn't getting a bracha from her father after all these years. And of course her mother was crying. And she heard a phone call that I had to take a certain phone call on the way back. And she heard what was going on in that phone call. And she came home and she says, you tell me you had a wonderful time? I said, yes. Because if I had the choice to spend that time with anybody in the world, it was a difficult day. But if I would do it all over again, if I would go to a hospital with anyone, if I would go to my mother-in-law, I better take my wife home. My mother-in-law is great. But it's always better with her daughter right by my side. So what's pshat? But it was a crazy day. And this is after sitting with 47 people for 3 hours straight, Kabbalah's call in my office this morning, 47 people. After the first 3 meetings after Shachar. So 50 people today. And then that day, and you know what? I'm in a great mood right now. What's pshat? I'll tell you what pshat is. We know the stories about the Balei Musar, Rabbi Salata. We read it in Tunas HaMusar. You see it in the English Sparks HaMusar. When it came to the Emas Adin, the Pachad, they heard the word Elul, people would faint. Rav Itzel, a Petterberger, Alter Mikel. We know their Sfarim, we know their Shiurim. And there was a Pachad in Emas Adin. And yet, on Erev Yom Kippur, when he saw Salata said, Shalom Aleichem to another Yid, Homie passed by in the street and he had totally ignored him, and he went over and he tapped him on his shoulder and he says, Rabbi Yid, and he was mamash, he saw, he was held, he was seized by a pachad. He's going into Yom Kippurim, and Rabbi Saul said, you can have your Emas Adin, but not on my cheshbon, not in a cheshbon of someone else's, bein adam l'chaveiro. Don't steal my simchas achayim. V'chatzkel Levenstein was once giving a shmuz in Ponovich, and he had Bochum sitting around in a semicircle, and in the middle of the shir he stopped, and he looked at one of the Bochum and he says, you Ganuv, you're a thief. Bochum looks at the mashgiach, says, Rabbi, I'm telling you, I didn't steal anything. Says, you're a Ganuv. Says, because you're the only one sitting here who's not smiling, and you're stealing the simchas achayim of everybody else in the room. Right, but it's been Kesel Osir. It's between Rosh Hashanah, the Yom Adin, and Yom Kippurim, and we know the Sfarim highlight the Emas Adin, the Pachad. These are Zamanim of Ema Yiraresis and say of utter sheer trepidation. So what's Pshat? Lamaisa, the Noda Yehuda Paskins, and Cheskel Landau in his Chuvas Noda Yehuda and Orchaim Simon Laman Hey, the Shal Shuv Shem Rokech and Simon Yud. The Ikar Tshuva is not Tanesim, Sigufim is not self-infliction of harm, of suffering, rolling naked in the snow, of fast day after fast day. Writes the Yismach Moshe in Parshas Noso on the Posik V'Svadu Eschatos, and the Heilige Yismach Moshe says, I'll bring you a riot to the Noda B'Yehuda. Where in the Torah does it say that there's a mitzvah you have to fast outside of Yom Kippur? And that I have to be fasting all the time, that I have to be rolling in the snow, that I have to be causing myself pain, that I have to be running all day around with an ema, a year resus and seya. We know the Arizal was asked by his Talmud Chaim Yitzhak, how did he get to the greatest madregas and Avodas Hashem? How did he become the Ariya Kadosh, the illustrious Arizal? And he says, Machmas all due to my simcha b'mitzvahs, even a simcha mitzvahs hatshuva. Alright, it's the Yismach Moshe. And we paskin like the Noda B'Yehuda. Why? Yes, there's a time to fast, there's a time to cut back on Tanugei Olam Hazeh, a time to manifest some measure of sacrifice, of abstention. But Acharei Close Kol Eibishter says, I want you to be close to me, I want you to want to come back to me b'simcho b'tuv leivav. That's what I want. I want a tshuva me'ava, and not the lower level of a tshuva me'ira. That's not the Tanesim and Sigufim that highlight and define for us Mitzvah HaTshuva. A Mitzvah HaTshuva is to go back, and it starts in Chodesh Elul, which is called Chodesh Elul, Api the Ariya Kodesh himself. And why? Because of Shir Shir Perek Vav Pasuk Gimel, Ani Ledodi V'Dodi Li Aroa B'Shoshanim. That's all Shoshanim, the Ponovitz Arav, it's roses, it's beautiful, Tyra, Yiddishkeit. It's a relationship. Ani Ledodi, I'm for my beloved. And my beloved, we said Dodi is Osio's Dode, it's an uncle. Everyone has a favorite uncle. They don't give you mussar, they just give you candies, they take you on trips. Ani Ledodi, we got the best uncle Kaviyochel in the world. We have Dodi, we have our beloved. Ani Ledodi V'Dodali, none of the Goyim, they're out of the picture. We are the Segula. And the Malachas Kodim Agoy Kodesh, we have a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and he has us. Abrochas Vava Menalva Hashem Amata Yom Hashem Amircha. Hashem says, you Klaiso, you're my exclusive best friend, you're my Kala. And nobody else is here. We too turn around to the Eibishter and say, Dodi Li and I have nobody else, exclusivity. What a relationship. Tshuva me'ava means that we do the tshuva with the simcha. We do it not driven by the Tanesim and the Sigufim. We do it because we love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we know how much He loves us so dearly and how much we yearn and pine to get back and to get close to Him. So what does it mean then, tshuva shlema? We don't have a bracha on the mitzvah tshuva. Why don't we have a bracha? It's discussed by the Rav Yitzchak Achan Inspector, Shal Shuvas Beis Yitzchak, the Gimel Kimon Kuf Samaches, Shal Shuvas Divrei Yisrael and Simon and Aleph, the Likutei Shoshana and the Berachas Yaakov, Parnas Yosef and Parshas Achrim, and he gives three terutzim. And the third teretz writes the Pardes Yosef and Achimos is quoting the Berachos Aaron, who says, you know why there's no bracha on the mitzvah of tshuva? And because there's so many pratim and it's so difficult, all the multifarious laws, the manifold aspects of Hilchos tshuva, you can't do it b'shleimus. It's come out impossible to do a tshuva shleima, and since it's come out impossible, Chazal felt, you know what, we're not going to be masake in a bracha if it's come out impossible to do a mitzvah b'shleimus. That's why there's no bracha mitzvah. So why is it so hard? What is tshuva shleima? I either do tshuva or I don't. I follow the Rambam's guidelines. You want to go after Rabbi Yonah, Shari tshuva, and at the end of the day it all comes down to the Yesodus of Vidoy, Azivas Achet, Charata, and the Chamalaver, Kabbalah Alba. So we know the components. I see you did them, that's it. What's tshuva shleima? So Rabbi Neuburger already gave you a heads up. That we mentioned the Yismach Moshe, we mentioned, but listen to this Hasidic Shafart. This is a Givas Pinchas Echon Migedolei Talmidei Habesht for Pinchas Mikuritz in a Sefer Givas Pinchas. A Mordecai Remes. You know why we call it Teshuvah? I says because to be Mekayim, to fulfill Teshuvah Shleima, you need to tap into the Roshei Tevis, Tov, Ashin, Avav, Aves, and Hey. That's Teshuvah Shleima. You got to cover all the bases. So what's the Roshei Tevis? Teshuvah writes for Pinchas Mikuritz. Atov is, let's go to Parak Yud Ches and Pasha Shoftim. Atomim tiyem Hashem Elokecha. First thing is, you got to walk in wholeness, in purity, in innocence with the Eibishter. Atomim tiyem, classic pasuk. And that's the beginning of Tshuva. Tshuva is Tamimus. I want to do the right thing, and I want to be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to be Hisalech B'yei Tamim. Haish Tam, Tamim, Avram, Yaakov. And we want to be B'tamimus with the Eibishter. Shin, Tehillim, Kapitel Tazayin. Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Summit. Are you living with God? Is God in front of you 24/7, 365? Ani Ladodi, we're right here, we're mamish together. Are you living with the Rebbeinu Shalom? Are you standing in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom? Ramesha Turski Hashem Gadoma used to say, Baruch Ata, he says, every bracha. Do I know what Baruch means? Yes, the Rashba and Chedush Agodas, Baruch Navzayim and Aleph and Shuvs. We don't know. Nev Shechaim, we could talk from here to tomorrow what Baruch means. He says, I don't really know what Baruch means. But he says, I can't even think about Baruch. He says, I get lost in my Ata. Ata, he's right here. Every time I pick up a cup of water, Baruch Ata, Shahakol, the Eibishter is right here opposite you. Ani Ladodi, Vedodi Li, Shivisi Hashem. He's right here with me. V'chatosi Negdi Summit. Why? Because I'm thinking Eibishter every single second. Baruch Ata, Moshe Tursky used to say he would get emotional. I'm just focusing on Ata. Here's Hashem's second person. He's right here opposite me. That's the Shin. Tshuva Shleima writes the Pinchas Mikuritz. It's got to start with Tom Tiyem Shulakecha. It's got to then journey into Shavisa Hashem Negdi Summit. What is the Vav? HaKadoshim. Hayutas Yudches V'yahavta L'reacha Kamocha Ani Hashem. HaTeshuvah. You got to love everybody else. I don't think that it's just about you. What are you caring about everybody else? As an unbelievable, let's press the pause button because this vort is going to blow you away. This is by Rosh Shlomo Arieli and the Sefer Rapiduni B'Tapuchim on the Moedim. And he writes, he makes the Cheshbon Yosef HaTzadik, when he interpreted the dreams of the Saramashkim and the Sarahofim, he makes a Cheshbon, it was Rosh Hashanah. And not only the Gemara Shud, Yosef was ultimately Yotzim Beis Hashem 2 years later, Mikhet Shanasayim Yomim, he got out afterwards on Rosh Hashanah. About the dreams, he makes the Cheshbon 2 years previous took place on Rosh Hashanah. He says, imagine, here's Yosef in the Beis Hasurim, here's Yosef HaTzadik. He says, imagine if we know Rabbi Yisrael Salanter and his Talmidim had such an Emas Adin and they couldn't be Messiah Das. Imagine Yosef HaTzadik. And this is Yosef HaTzadik. He's there in the dungeons, there's nothing to do. There's no internet, there's no cell phones, there's nothing. All it is the Vegas with Hashem, Yom HaMalayla. He's now holding by Rosh Hashanah. Can you imagine what Yosef's davening was like Rosh Hashanah? Here's Yosef. The Arizal writes he was masaking tefillas musaf. Avos tefillas to avos tignim rochas chavav amar around the rochas loch b'artes aloch aleph. Yosef writes the Arizal gave us tefillas musaf. Yosef is always Yosef Hashem. He's adding more tefillas, more davening. He's davening, holding by the Vegas like you can't believe. He says, and what happens? He sees the Saramashkim Sarofim, and they look a little bit downcast, a little bit depressed. He approaches them. Hey guys, tell me what's wrong. You look a little sad today. Oh well, Yosef, we had a dream. One thing leads to the next. He interprets the dreams. Ultimately, he would have gone out, but he said, Kiyim Sachatani, mentioned it a second time, we know. The upshot is, he ultimately gets out. Why? Because he was the dream interpreter. Alright, so the Rabbadunim with the Buchim, Ef Shal Lahasik. Yosef Atzadik is holding my Dveikis with the emotion like you can't believe. He's mamish in the Olama Salyonim. It's Rosh Hashanah, the Yom Adin. Yosef is, he's probably floating up there. Mamish in the Olama Salyonim. And he sees two guys, regular guys. They're goyim. They're not even Jews. They're in the dungeon with him. And he says, guys, you look a little sad. What's wrong? And that's the Gorim that was the harbinger of the ultimate Geula from the Beis Yisrael, from his incarceration. Because Tshuva is not just about you. Do you care about all of Hashem's children? And do you love? Bein Adam Chaveiro has to join forces with Bein Adam L'Malkam. He interrupted his Bein Adam L'Malkam because it's not going to be complete unless it's coupled with the Bein Adam L'Chaveiro, and that was the ticket to his ultimate salvation. Back to the Kuritzer. Give us Pinchas. Tov Tovim Tiyem Hashem Elkecha. Ashin Shivisi Hashem Menegdi Samid. Vav Yahavta L'Recha Kamocha. Avez. Excellent. Let's go to the Posik in Mishlei. Perek Gimel Posik Vav. B'chol derachecha de'eya v'hu yiyasher orchasecha. And that means what? Not only in mitzvahs. All divrei reshus. Know God. Live with God. Even in your divrei, even when you're eating. Even when you get into your car. Whatever you're doing in life. Noah Kodesh Baruch Hu Mimekani, sanctify everything that you do. And then we have the hay. And the hay is taking us to Micha. Perek Vav Posik Ches. Whatever you're doing in life, but do it b'tznius. You don't have to show off your tshuva to everybody else in the world. It's not about going out rolling naked in the snow. It's not about showing everyone to work. Oh no, you're not eating anything. You're fasting every single day. Tshuva is your personal process. Keep it quiet. Keep it b'tznius. Azog they give us pinchas. That's tshuva shleima. Tshuva Shlema is when you bring about a Shlemus to all the psukim that are subtly alluded to in the Osios Teshuva, and the Tov Tovim Tiyem Hashem Lakecha, and the Shin Shavisa Hashem Menegdi Samid, and the Vav Yahata Lecha Kamocha, and the Veis V'chol Derachecha De'evu Yasher Chasecha, and finally the Hey of Micha Vav Ches Hatznei Alecha Sim Alokecha. That is Tshuva Shlema. Anything negative, anything pejorative in those psukim, not at all. Anything that seizes you with an honor, fear, and trepidation, no. Tshuva Shlema is love God, live with God, and love all of His other children. Arbi b'simcha, etzepela, elu, the charina sadin, the fear, the trepidation. But listen to a darkei tshuva. This is the zaydi of the mincha salos of the Munkat Rebbe. All right, it's the heilige darkei tshuva in Yordeya. And Simon Kufay and Tess of Kotan Yudches. All right, so the darkei tshuva, even though the minhag by many people is we don't have chasanas by the end of Chodesh Elul, because we don't have chasanas by the end of any Chodesh. Really, that should be the din. Because it's the Miyah Telefona, the waxing and waning in the lunar cycle. The moon is already diminishing in size. It's not a Siman Yafa. So you shouldn't get married at the end of the month. But writes the darkei tshuva, it's a halacha sefer. He says, but I'm going to quote to my Zaydi, the Bnei Yissaschar, the din of a Rebbe, and my Zaydi. And when he was the Rav in Munkatz, the Bnei Yissaschar said, we're making chasanas at the end of the month in Chodesh Elul. Because Elul is a month of Simcha. Al Gavali Garotzen. Stay Chemen, Marachas Chasna Kala says that many people would bedavke get married at the end of the month also in Chodesh Adar. Mishnach Nesad Amarim Simcha. So at the end, and it's Paskin and Shalos Tshuvas Tirush V'Yitzar and Simon Kufi and Aleph. The Tirush V'Yitzar Paskins that the minhag is, we get married even at the end of the month of Adar, and yes, even at the end of the month of Elul. Elul, who has time to think about marriage? I'll let the rabbis off the hook. They got to get ready for Shabbos Shumadosha, and you're making them run out the chasanas at the end of Elul. What do you mean? Shugoyim. Who has time for chasanas? I tell her, it says what? Elul's gewaldig. It's Yemei Rotzen. It's Yemei Simcha. Yes, this keep the charedas adin inside. That's for you in your office and your study. That's you under the covers. 5 minutes before you go to sleep, you better start shaking. You better start schwitzing. You better make the cheshvan and nevers. But the rest of the day, as Tomim Tia Shivisi is v'hatach kamoicha is v'chol derech is ani ledodi. You got to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever you're doing, you got to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu and know that He never stops loving you. We got to live with Him. That's ani ledodi. It's a month of simcha. It's a month that's equated in the poskim of Chodesh Adar. It's a pli atzuma. That's it, you're right, it's a difficult time. It's Yom Noro Mitzad Echad, and Mitzad Sheni. And we have to know we have this Schus, Tshuva Shlema. And it's a Tshuva Me'ava, to know that Hashem loves us more than we could ever imagine. And that's what my wife heard in the phone call, and that one phone call that I took in the car on the way back, and I always ask her Rishus, because otherwise, husband-wife time, that's it, the phone's out of sight, out of mind. I asked her Rishus, and this is a person who needed Chizzuk going through a certain inyan, and I actually had to firmly, I still recall, I had to raise my voice, gently but firmly, a little bit. It was that delicate balance, but I had to tell this person. I said, you have to know and that Hashem loves you more than you could ever imagine. And Ein Dover Omi B'fnei HaTshuva. Hashem loves you and Hashem wants you to come back. Hashem welcomes you with His warm embrace, with His open arms, Kaviyachal. Hashem says, we're coming into a Yom Kippur now. And yes, there's a time to fear. Keep it limited, keep it inside. He says, there's a man to enjoy the simcha of the closeness, the proximity. Eibishter loves us more than we could ever be masik. And know that He loves us. Life is difficult. And yes, we have a lot of things to clap our chait for, but just know He wants nothing more in the world than us coming back to Him. Tshuva, than returning to our Father in heaven. The Father who says, I love you, my dear sons, more than any parent could ever love a child. Amelu we should be zeichen this Yom Kippur Ba'aleinu L'Tova, to realize the unique relationship we, Klal Yisrael, and each and every one of us has with the Ribono Shel Olam. Let's return to Him like never before, Ba'ava u'b'simcha. And Emet Hashem, Rabbi Pelcovitz will carry us all on his shoulders with Mashiach Tzidkenu, Tabias HaMashiach, B'meira V'yameinu, Amen.